Counselors dig. There arose a misunderstanding between Adigaman, the reigning chief of Thakadur, and Tondaiman, the reigning chief of Kanchi. It could have been instantly cleared up, but God knows what happened. It grew over the years and the two chiefs turned into bitter enemies. Adigaman, who had a huge army under his command, never waged a war against any country, but used his armed force only to defend his own land from the enemies. And so he was not surprised to receive a message from his arch-enemy, Tondaiman, which read as follows: "Get ready to defend your country from my onslaught." In reply to it, he wrote on silk, "Do come to die," and sent it through Tondaiman's messenger. Avvai, the minstrel, living peacefully in the palace of Adigaman, got wind of the brewing war. She wanted to avert it, and so she spoke to Adigaman thus: "What do you gain by waging a war? Oh, you broad-minded chief, you know it is nothing much. The victor gets a boost to his ego. The vanquished suffers a dent in his ego. But the real losers are the common people in both countries at war. They lose their peace. How could you, the guardian of peace in your country, ever think of destroying it?" As Adigaman stood listening to Avvai in rapt attention, she continued, "Huts will be gutted, terraced buildings will be leveled to the ground, hard-earned wealth will be looted. The effort that every man has put forth to make his land prosperous will be erased from memory. Now calculate and tell me how many heads of soldiers will roll off their necks. How many will be crippled for life? Aren't you aware that the death of every soldier would give birth to a widow? The children of the dead soldiers will beg in the streets for food. Imagine the plight of fatherless children. Should you not take steps to avoid this impending disaster?" Adigaman clicked his tongue and said, "Oh mother, I always think of war as a killer of peace. This is the reason why I don't wage a war. I will never do it. But isn't it my duty to defend my country and my people from my enemy? But is there no other way out? The only way I could think of is to submit myself to my enemy, which I will not do. It is not that I love my people less, but I love the honor of my country more," replied Adigaman, puffing out his chest. Seconds later he added, "But if somebody could drive some sense into the war-crazy head of Tondaiman, then there is a chance. But all and sundry can't do it. Only someone to whose words Tondaiman would give heed to could do it. Who is that somebody?" "Well then, let me try. Allow me to go to Tondaiman's court as your messenger. Please do, no matter what you tell him, avert the disastrous war somehow." Avvai journeyed to Kanchi as Adigaman's messenger. Ancient Tamil literature speaks of two types of messengers: reporters who simply report what their king or chief advised them to tell, and two, advocates, those who rely on their intelligence to win over the king's enemy. The second category is certainly superior to the first. No doubt, Avvai belonged to the superior variety. Tondaiman jumped for joy at the very sight of Avvai. He was her great admirer and fan. He loved to be in her company, and together they chatted for a long time. It is said that the advisor is more important than the advice itself. Avvai's attempt to avert the war proved fruitful. "Well then, wise lady, you showed me the right path. I will never again draw my sword out of my scabbard unless in self-defense," says Tondaiman. Avvai stood pleased at the words of the chief from whose minds he had succeeded in uprooting his obsession with war. A couple of days later, when Avvai wanted to leave Kanchi for Thakkadur, Tondaiman took her to his armory. As the huge doors of the armory were thrown open, Avvai closed her eyes and couldn't open them for a minute, for every weapon kept there dazzled and gleamed. Avvai opened her eyelids slowly. She saw a great many different kinds of sword, rapier, saber, and cutlass, all kept beside their well-polished scabbards. The chieftain took the wise old counselor around. Hanging shields adorned the walls, while spears, javelins, lances, and spikes rested, leaning against them. Thousands of spearheads were kept in a huge wooden container, and their shafts were all tied up like faggots and kept on the floor. But for your arrival here, all these weapons would have gone to the battlefield, Tondaiman said to Avvai. He was secretly laughing to himself, for he was not sure that the old lady would brief Adigaman about the numerous weapons she had seen in the arsenal. Avvai thought a while and said, "What a fool would Adigaman be to think of waging a war against you when you have such well-polished and sharp weapons that are yet to see a war. His weapons certainly would outnumber yours, but all that he has are the rusted, blunt, broken weapons, most of them twisted out of shape. It may need hundreds of blacksmiths to put them back to use," said Avvai, and began her journey to Thakkadur. Tondaiman brooded over the words of Avvai. He then said to himself thus, "How clever is this old lady! I thought she praised me and made a dig at Adigaman, but in fact, the dig was aimed at me. Good heavens, what a fool am I to declare a war against Adigaman, who has fought several battles, and I not even one."